All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL props video. Going to be touching on the top prop bets here in the NFL here for this two-game slate on Saturday. Let's go ahead and get into it. So guys, as always, I like to start off with a game preview of the games that we have going on. Let's start off with the Cleveland versus Baltimore game. This is going to be a very interesting game in terms of prop betting because it's a low game total of 41 points or so, but it is a 20-point spread. Okay, the Cleveland Browns are going to be starting DTR, it seems like, but also playing Bailey Zappi at quarterback. The Cleveland Browns are also be down to their third, fourth-string running back in Deonta Foreman, who's not terrible. We might have a bet for him, but definitely an interesting game there for the Cleveland Browns. The nice thing about that game is that the Ravens are going to be playing for something. That's nice to see, and kind of the Browns are playing for something as well. The Browns are playing to not win. They're like the only team that's actually going to be the most difficult to peg, I would say, is the Browns on this two-game slate. Now, if I had a favorite bet in this game, it would probably be kind of pairing two bets up together, one with the Cleveland Browns and then one with Derrick Henry for over his rush yards, like I have highlighted here. Okay, Derrick Henry to get over 91.5 rush yards does feel like a pretty solid bet in this game. That is, again, probably going to be a run-heavy script because they are 20-point favorites. Now, the concern that I have is that this game gets out of hand pretty easily, and the reason why it gets out of hand is not Derrick Henry. Maybe it's Lamar Jackson just throwing for a bunch of yards. This is a pretty good matchup for the receivers as well. But to me, seeing a 20-point spread, that typically means it's going to be more of a run-heavy script. And I'll pull up his rushing over and unders here on PrizePicks. They present the data a little bit better than Underdog does. We're going to see that over the past few games, it's obviously really been crushing the over. This is a game script that should present that same type of game where we look at the last two games, guys. They won by a massive amount, still won by a decent amount there against the Giants, but as the Giants, that game was over pretty early. And that's the concern there, is that we're just not going to see Derrick Henry get as much work as we would need him to get this over. That's the concern there. Okay. So I get why there's a decent prop line difference there between PrizePicks and Underdog, but I'm okay with that. Now, a bet that I kind of like to pair with that is actually going to be looking at the Cleveland Browns defender, Grant Delpit. He's one of the leading tackle getters there on the Cleveland Browns. Again, with this game being a game that I think will be more of a run-heavy script, I like the idea of betting on someone that is going to be, part of that. And if you pair those two prop bets together, Derrick Henry over his rush yards, Grant to get over his tackles and assists here, that's not a terrible bet. Now, this is a plus bet. Obviously, it's not that likely for it to hit. I mean, the lower is 0.88x, right? Not the best bet, but to me, kind of chasing those higher likely odds in this spot is not terrible. But the issue that I have as well is that maybe he just doesn't end up playing that much in this game that, again, is going to be a 20-point spread. That's the difficult part here for me. Now, a bet that I kind of hate that I'm going to recommend here as well to kind of wrap up this game. It's kind of an easier game as it sits right now. I'll talk about some quick stuff here, but it's going to be Deonta Foreman to score a rushing touchdown. If the Browns score a touchdown, I think he has a great chance to score a touchdown in this game, okay? And that's going to be because they're going to be without Pierre Strong. They're going to be without Jerome Ford. They're also going to be without Nick Chubb still. That does mean they're probably going to go with Deonta Foreman as the lead running back. Now, I don't want to say that for certain that he's going to be like a workhorse back in this game because John Kelly, who's not a terrible kind of practice squad running back, he should get some work in this game. Like, John Kelly has been like a preseason NFL DFS darling for anyone that plays that. He's been a stud there. And so Foreman is definitely an interesting play here. But again, I don't mind the idea of getting there. If the Browns score a touchdown, he should be part of the reason as to why. But I honestly wish these odds were much, much greater on Underdog. I think this would be a better traditional sportsbook bet than it is on Underdog. Now, real quickly, I do want to mention this here as well. So let's start with kind of the running back position as well here for the Ravens is like Keenan Mitchell. Keenan Mitchell came back and looked really good last week, I thought. But he is still kind of recovering from injury, obviously, in that game. To me, if this game does end up being a blowout and a pretty fast blowout, he will still get some work. But to me, it makes more sense to get Ali some work in that game. So very interesting. Like, I would almost maybe like the kind of Chris Brooks touchdown call that I had a couple of weeks ago. I could see it more with Ali than it would be Keenan Mitchell, maybe a second half touchdown with him, where again, if that game does end up being a huge blowout, to me, it doesn't make sense to get Keenan Mitchell too much work. When the game's close, yes, he'll be the one getting the work. But I think once the game gets out of hand, it'll be Ali because you just no need to risk the work there for Keenan Mitchell, who is recovering from injury. First game back, looked good. Now, sticking with the Browns there, we need to mention this as well. Jordan Atkins could be in for a massive workload in this game. And the reason why that is because, one, he got 58% of the snaps last week, and that was because David Njoku was out. He's been kind of a decent tight end for them, kind of getting a decent amount of snaps and some receptions and targets, but Blake Whiteheart, who ended up playing all the other snaps, could be out in this game. If he were out, that would lead to a lot more snaps for Jordan Atkins. We could lock in 80% of the snaps in a game in which the game total is, or the point spread is 20 points, obviously more of a passive script, that becomes pretty interesting to me. Another kind of interesting spot here as well is Michael Woods. Michael Woods is currently questionable. He's been playing a bunch of snaps, played 90% of the snaps last week, playing more snaps than Elijah Moore as well. I think this should be a good game for him. Baltimore defense has kind of struggled against the pass, but he is currently questionable as well. If he were to end up staying, I could actually see us being on Jeremiah Thrash. Now, we're not getting really good prop bets or any prop bets really for any of those guys, so tough to say exactly what we should do. I don't mind Woods. I don't mind Atkins. We need that news to break our way, though. Let's go on again to the next game. That'll be a little bit easier to predict. So, guys, one of my favorite bets is actually looking at Joe Burrow to get over 25.5 pass completions. You can get that on Underdog. I don't even hate the idea of getting to it at 26.5 as well. Now, this is an interesting spot. This feels like the ultimate trap spot here for the Cincinnati Bengals. They won't know kind of their fate heading into this game, which is good. They're going to have to play to win, right? There's not going to be any mental barriers for them. This game, to me, feels a lot like the Green Bay Packers-Detroit game from a few years ago, where Detroit ended up beating the Green Bay Packers to eliminate them from the playoffs. The Packers just had to win. It's not exactly that same scenario, but I don't know. Joe Burrow reminds me of Aaron Rodgers a lot, guys. I don't know, like the talent's completely there. Like you could argue that, throughout his career, Aaron Rodgers, best quarterback ever. You could argue that Joe Burrow, throughout his career as well, has been the top quarterback in the league during that span. I know there's Lamar Jackson. I know Josh Allen's doing his thing, but the natural comparison is between him and Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, you gravitate more towards the championships. I get that, but you could make that argument. It feels very similar to Aaron Rodgers. So I don't know. The comparisons are there to me in my head. And so I'm thinking like, this is the trap spot here, going against the Steelers, a team that they had a shootout against in the last game, but wouldn't it be surprising to see it actually end up being a defensive struggle, even though it's a 48-point total? It could get interesting, but I think the safe route to go is to not do that hot take, bet on the game being a high game total like Vegas thinks, and if it does, Joe Burrow to get over 25.5 pass completions feels like a pretty good bet. And so again, I'm showing you guys this on PrizePicks right now, but we're looking at the pass completions there for Joe Burrow. Was able to get the over against Denver, not against Cleveland, not against Tennessee. Don't really care about that. Part of this, we look at the last game against Pittsburgh as well. Able to get 28 pass completions in that game as well. This is why it's important that we get it at 25.5 as well. Like against Tennessee, got the over there. And so that's where maybe at 26.5, we have to think about it there. Now, it's going to be a reduced payout there on Underdog, but still not bad. Now, to me, a thing that could actually maybe hurt the likelihood for this bet is Chase Brown being out. I don't think so. I think the offense wouldn't lose too much. I like Khalil Herbert as a talent. Maybe that actually leads to less rushes, which to me, with that could actually hurt. If the Pittsburgh Steelers are able to key in on just trying to stop the pass, that could actually hurt the likelihood for Joe Burrow to have an efficient day passing the football. That being said, if Chase Brown is out, I do think that leads to more pass attempts in total for Joe Burrow. And so that's kind of why I like that as well. I do think if Chase Brown is out, that will end up helping Joe Burrow out a little bit more. Now, a bet that I like to pair with that is actually sticking with one of his receivers here, Andre Yoshivach, to get his over receiving yards. To me, those two bets kind of go hand in hand here. Okay, so the sportsbook data not going to really like this bet. They're actually liking the under for his receptions of 2.5, a decent amount at 52%. So again, more of a traditional sportsbook bet, but that's going to be the case, guys, with these two game slates. I always say it on PrizePicks and Underdog, we're not getting like good bets per se. Those bets that are over 54% likely to hit, those bets that we would want to go out of our way to target on any day of the week. That doesn't happen with the limited game slates. That's just how it goes. People want the content on the two game slates. I'm giving it to them. And so Yoshivach to get over his receiving yards is a bet that I don't mind. Again, I think pairing that with Joe Burrow for his pass completions makes sense. To me, if you take out Chase Brown, yes, Khalil Herbert will probably get some of those short yardage receptions that Chase Brown was getting. That being said, I do think Yoshivach could be someone that actually steps up into that role a little bit more. This is a high game total. This is a must-win situation. I do think that could lead to, again, just more pass attempts in general for the Cincinnati Bengals. Yoshivach is someone that if we pull up his game log here, kind of the snapshot on PrizePicks, what we're going to notice is obviously a good game there against Denver, a pretty good game against Cleveland, was able to get the over against Pittsburgh as well. So to me, that's another good sign there. And so I think this could end up being a sneaky good bet here as well. And so let's go ahead and get into some other bets that I like here in this game. I don't mind the idea of getting to Jaylen Warren for over 20.5 receiving yards. Right now, guys, the lines are just a little bit lower on Underdog, so I'm kind of favoring more of that. He's someone that did get this over in this last game against the Bengals as well. That's obviously encouraging there. He is someone that really does need to get going for the Steelers offense to be productive. If this game is going to be a shootout, if Vegas is correct about this game, to me, this one feels like a great bet for him to get over 20.5 receiving yards. Okay, on top of that, he has been getting more and more work compared to Najee Harris. If we take out the garbage time that Najee Harris got last week, it has been 3 straight games there then where Jaylen Warren has gotten 65% of the snaps. And so again, if this game is close like Vegas thinks, if it's high scoring like Vegas thinks, I really like the over receiving yards of 20.5 there for Jaylen Warren. So another interesting player that we can bet on is Pat Freiermuth to potentially get over his receptions as well. He's playing a lot of snaps, has been very productive in those snaps as well. I want to see if he's going to have a good fantasy score line as well. He could be someone that we actually get to more so there. We're not getting those odds just yet. We can see we can get him at 2.5 receptions here on PrizePicks. I'm actually okay with that. I think that's an okay goblin bet. Against the Bengals last time out, did get 6 receptions in that game. He's been productive. He's looked good. Russell Wilson's going to have to look to him in this game as well. And then lastly, the last bet that I like is actually Calvin Austin to get over 2.5 receptions. Not a lock and load bet by any means, but again, just going more based off of the game script. He has been someone that's been impressive as well. Was productive in 2 out of 3 games with George Pickens out. Was able to keep up that production. Most of it, though, came in the final drive there against the Kansas City Chiefs last week. That was a lot of garbage time. To me, it's encouraging. Like, to me, he's clearly a talent. Get him involved. Like, I just don't see why you wouldn't do that. And so, again, if this game is a shootout, he'll be on the field a little bit more. That is important because he does not get on the field in 2 receiver sets with George Pickens backs. We need it to be a shootout for this one to hit. So you could pair that up with that game script. And so, guys, we go ahead and jump into the bet of the day here, kind of just recapping my favorite bets here. More of some game stack bets here. Again, not getting that many good bets there in that Baltimore versus Cleveland game as it sits right now. I do like the idea of game stacking that Steelers and Cincinnati game in terms of it being a high-scoring game. That's the route I'm going here. That's going to do it for this video, guys. Make sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel. If you guys want access to the PrizePicks and Underdog prop tools, head on over to 95sports.com. Get access to those for just $10 a month. Thank you guys for watching. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.